We are so fortunate this glorious Sunday morning, sunny Sunday morning, to have three people, Ada, Yvonne, and Gert, willing to participate in our storytelling service. If you look in the bulletin and see the Affirming Committee's vision statement inside the cover, we want Faith United to be a safe community where no one feels alone and everyone feels at home. So, welcome to our home, and we're going to sit back and listen to our speakers with love in our hearts, and we thank them for sharing.
I'm going to tell you a few stories. First of all, when I was 11 years old, I won the blue ribbon in a slow bicycle race. And it was just down the street, Memorial School, on a field day. I wasn't as fast, strong, or agile as any of the other children. I have, and I had way back then, an autoimmune disease called scleroderma. But I thought, I can win this slow bicycle race because I had great balance. I was definitely good at being slow, and I had determination. Boy, it was the only possible thing I could win at field day. So anyways, I did win, and actually to this day, those are my skills. I move slowly, I am very determined, and I try and keep my balance. So I grew up, got my education, got a job, and I had interests, curiosity, good family, good friends. And I had gotten my mental and physical health to the best I could get them. And I was still feeling that life was difficult. And so one day I was thinking, I think I'm like a three-legged stool. Mind, body, spirit, the legs. And I had my mind and my body as good as I could get them. But my spirit, I thought I better shore up. So my parents were going here to church. So I thought, okay, I'll go to church. At that time, I could walk short distances, but to get out and about, I used a mobility scooter. The church had a lift. Thank you very much for those who arranged that. So I could get into the church. And that lift is used for more than people who can't walk upstairs. Right now, the Meals of Hope and Anne down in the kitchen. It goes from the ground level, I would say 1,000 pounds of food a day goes down on that lift to Anne in the kitchen. And so when you make something accessible for somebody, you make it accessible for a whole lot of things. Just like Gert was saying, there's benefits for having the lectern lower. So so that's what got me here, that three-legged stool image. I'm going to tell you a story about the audio-visual system. A number of years after that, we got the audio-visual system in, and the hymns and everything were on the screen. And a month or so ago, the system broke. We had to get a new one. And in between the old and the new one, there wasn't words on the screen. And it was interesting because I couldn't grip a hymn book. And so when there was no hymn words on the screen, my brother, who was sitting beside me, just without a word, just opened the hymn book and shared it with me like he had done years ago. So all of these things help. I'm going to tell a story about from way back 1996. I was working at the HSR because the city was turning to accessible low-floor buses. ALFs, they were called, and they still are. They're everywhere now. And so part of my job was training the bus operators, making sure that the bus shelters and bus stops were accessible for people using wheelchairs getting on and off. And we needed to have all sorts of things accessible. So one day, before we launched this, I was on the bus in my my mobility scooter, and to try things out and see if there were problems. And a woman came up to me and said, "You don't belong on this bus. You have your own buses." So I thought, okay, I hadn't thought of this. I was looking for physical problems. So in my notebook, I wrote, okay, attitude of other passengers might be a problem. Coming back to recently, last spring, I had quite the opposite reaction. This was last spring, yes. During our discussion group on Monday, one Monday, the lift that gets us from the assembly room to the Dickinson Hall wasn't working. And we have the discussion group in Dickinson Hall. So every time before when this happened, and over 30 years this happened quite a bit, not just here, but other places, I would be told, "Sorry, Ada, you're going to have to come back next week." But that didn't happen. That discussion group has an atmosphere of acceptance and everyone is wanted. So so what happened was they realized I couldn't get upstairs, so they had the discussion group down in the assembly hall. Now, that involved setting up tables and chairs. There were 20 people, and coffee had to be brought down because coffee is essential at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. And so the chairs aren't as comfortable, and it's not carpeted and it's not pretty. But anyways, the thing that I was amazed by, and I don't think anybody else noticed this, but nobody said, "Oh, we have to be down here because of Ada." It was when they asked, "Why are we meeting here?" Somebody said, "The lift is broken." Yeah. And believe it or not, that's a huge difference to me. And it's an attitude and acceptance that is important everywhere. It was natural. There was no fuss, no muss. And I sat there with these 20 other people in the discussion group going, wow. So I no longer think of my state of being as a three-legged stool. That's hard to balance. And I now believe that God is within us and everywhere, the all abilities. Through being present here on Sundays and at the Monday morning discussion groups, I am reaching out, I can reach out for understanding and awareness of this. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. And thanks, Jane and your Affirming team for inviting me or even including me in your storytelling. I've got a few stories, quite a few actually. However, I will highlight the two that impacted me the most and perhaps still have some effects on me as I gotten older and my knowledge of certain things becomes more enlightening. So I've worked with a company in telecommunications for over 45 years. I just retired from that last April. A company a job that I totally loved and did the best that I could over the 45 years or so. And I've done a wide variety of things within the company or within the departments of which I work. Some of my tasks included training and development, which was predominantly the most important piece of my accountability. Training and development in systems, applications, processes, and policies of the company, and to ensure that the agents or the associates, depending on what department we were working in, were meeting their accountabilities, meeting their metrics, meeting their targets. It was a part of my job to ensure that I would find ways to help them to meet those targets or to meet the metrics and to offer good service to those who we serve. There was a time when I was invited to even train people who were blind. And I thought to myself, why would you ask me to do such a task? I'm a sighted person. But the person who invited me to do that or asked me to consider doing that might have seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. But nonetheless, I did that. I went from Hamilton, Kitchener, London, Guelph, and Toronto to teach those in the department who were blind to do the sighted work. And it was an interesting time, but it allowed me to learn more than what I thought I was even capable of learning. But there was a time when a promotion was slated to happen. And you might have heard in the news recently that there are people of color in the federal government who is pursuing a lawsuit for promotions that they were passed over. And I can relate to that, and this is a story that I will tell. So in this particular year, when they had what we call the roundtable conversations, and this is where they look at each employee in the department or in the departments and look at how they were meeting or not meeting their various metrics and their performance and all that kind of stuff. And my manager has said to me that the next promotion that happens, I will be getting that. And of course I felt happy, I felt excited, I was looking forward to that. But the time for the next promotion to happen, I didn't get it. And I wondered, but I wasn't bold enough or brave enough to say to the manager, well, what happened? I just went along with it, feeling somewhat depleted and figure, well, maybe I'm not good enough. But as it would happen, I lived in Toronto at the time, so I was taking the subway home, and another manager happened to be on the same platform with me. And he said to me, my other name is Velma, for those of you who do not know. He said to me, Velma, your performance review went very well. I'm very happy for you. And I'm a little confused now because I didn't get that promotion. And he said, so yes, the next promotion, your manager should be announcing that forthwith. And I'm thinking, well, he didn't do that because somebody else got that. But I didn't say that to him. I just sort of pondered that. And I went back to work the next day, not saying anything, just go ahead doing the work that I would do. And so happened, a training session had been scheduled for that particular day, and the person who was assigned the promotion had to go for this training. And by noon, she came back and she said to the manager, I can't do this. I just can't do it. You have to find somebody else. And I was hearing this because I was sitting close to the manager, and I'm hearing that conversation, and I'm thinking in my heart, thank you, Lord, because sometimes you do hear prayers. And the manager came to me at my desk and said, Velma, would you be interested in taking this training program that is being offered, and then you would need to train the rest of the staff? And of course I said yes. At that point, I wasn't going to say, well, that's what you should have done in the first place. I just said, okay. So I went for the training, which went very well, and I came back, and it was like a 1-week training, and I came back and I trained the whole department, and everything went very well. But I was not offered the position that holds the task. And I pondered about it, and then I went to the manager and I said, if I'm going to be doing this role, then you need to title it. You need to give it a title. And it wasn't easy to get him to recognize that I was doing the work of what he had promoted the person prior to me to do. And how do you challenge your manager? How do you lift up a voice that says you're being unfair? How do you question the unfairness of the position to somebody with such power? At any rate, eventually, I was given the title, of which I held for over 20 years. Teaching, training and development, processes, policies, systems, and the whole bit. So that I had to carry with me for the 25 years or so within the company after that time, knowing that every time that there's a position available, not only for me, but anyone who might look like me, will have to work that much harder to assume the role. They may be doing the task, they may be performing very well, but yet not given an opportunity to give a title to what they're doing. And is that still going on? Absolutely, it's still going on. But I think we are a little, and when I say we, I'm talking about people of color, are braver now, who will call it out and say, well, if my people skills are good, if my knowledge is exemplary, if I have all the qualifications that allows me to do this position, then why am I not given the title? And communities of faith is no better. They're no different. I mean, great story, Ada, that your community of faith came around and worked with you on not singling you out. But there are times in a community of faith where you're just left out. And for about 8 years at the time, we ran a program called Sunday Suppers, a program that I chaired for the first maybe 5 to 7 years of that program, where we make Sunday suppers for people in the community who we call on the edge. And these were Sunday suppers that we would want to serve at our own dinner tables. It was meat and potatoes and fresh vegetables and soup, and we had maybe about 7 participants who comes in on a Sunday and take on the work. And maybe in the 8th or 9th year, when I gave up the chair of that program, I would drop in on a Sunday afternoon when they were preparing for the folks to come in. And one Sunday was Easter, and my church was on for preparing that meal. And I walked into the kitchen, and I could sense the coldness of reception in that kitchen, and I wondered, like, okay, what's going on? Because I would offer to help in whatever they were preparing, and that help was not accepted. And then I thought that I should leave. But before I left, I walked out into the fellowship room where they had set up the tables for dinner, and the dinner would have been for those who are working, would have a meal, okay, it was Easter, to have a meal after they had served our guests. And rightly so, because I mean they're being away from their families for Easter, so that's totally acceptable. And when I walked in, I thought, oh, this is lovely. You were having a dinner after, you know. And even that was met with coldness and not an invitation to share the meal with them. So I left. I left brokenhearted. I left wondering why the attitude, why the reception was so cold, why the change in those folks who I used to work with or who I've worked with over so many years would be extend such a cold heart towards me. I never did get the answer. I never did. However, I have to say that over the years, it's now starting to get somewhat better. The attitudes starting to get a little better. And there's a lot of work that goes into bringing the attitude to a place where I would say we're being enlightened. We're being enlightened. So I'll leave those 2 stories with you. Take from that what you may. Hoping that, oh, Bill is here. Oh my God, you can relate. Yeah, take from that what you may. But it is, it's always such a warm feeling when there's inclusion. When there's inclusion, when you're not being seen as the other, when you're not being seen as different, when for me, when my difference I have to live with day over day over day, I can't change that. And when that becomes a barrier in the inclusion, it digs deep to the heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. So Yvonne and I became very good friends at Sydenham Heritage, and I can really relate to the story she's telling. We went through a lot. In 2 Samuel chapters the chapter that we read this morning, chapter 9, verse 7, and David said to him, "Do not fear, for I will show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan, and I will restore you all the land of Saul your father, and you shall eat at my table." And he did obeisance and said, "What is your servant that you should look upon a dead dog such as I?" It's hard words, and now this morning I've dressed specifically for one reason with my full suit, because I'm going to take this suit off and I'm going to put it here. There's the minister. Here is Gert. And it's Gert addressing you this morning, not the minister. So 29 March 1994, I received my first call to the congregation of Klerksdorp, which is a city in the northwest of South Africa. And that was my church. It doesn't look that big, but it seats 700 people. And I was a hit. Oh boy. With my fire and brimstone preaching, that church, they had to carry in chairs every Sunday morning, extra chairs, because we couldn't seat all the people. It is a big city, and there were 6 other Dutch Reformed congregations in the city, but I was the most popular. Young, just from university, I was 26 years old, beautiful before all these wrinkles came, and I knew how to do it, and we built an enormous congregation. We were at one stage over 800 full-time members, active members in the church. It was quite something I can just imagine this place as well, full on a Sunday morning. That is what it was like in the early 90s in South Africa. So after my big success, I had a great salary, so I wanted a new car. So I went to a salesperson in town and I bought my first own car. The other one my parents bought me when I went to university. And it was a Volkswagen Jetta. Not brand new, but almost. And I was so proud. But when I was sitting with him, he said, "Well, it's going to take a couple of minutes to deliver the car." And he said, "Well, I said, "I don't have time. I have a funeral." So I left with a borrowed car from the sales garage, or what you want to call it. And he brought my new car the evening after I've done all my work. And he stayed a while, and we became really good friends. And it was like, wow, having a friend outside of the congregation, where you can just put your feet up, watch a rugby game on a Saturday afternoon, have a barbecue, at that stage still a beer and a wine. It was really a precious gift to have such a friend in those circumstances. After a while, the Sunday school, you can just imagine, 800 full-time members. We had 200 kids in the Sunday school, and we organized a camp, and we went to a nearby holiday resort with all these kids. Whew, that aged me quite a bit to handle all those kids. I have really respect for you that raise kids in this world. And we had a really good time, but I had 2 kids of my own at the manse, which were 2 Cocker Spaniels. And their names were Deborah and Barak. And very close to my heart, and they were my family at that stage, because my parents lived on a farm more than 200 kilometers away. And I asked this friend of mine to come and house sit for the week and look after my dogs and garden and everything, which he immediately agreed to, and came with his suitcase and never left. So when I came back from the Sunday school, he was there. He duplicated all the keys to my house, and he said, "I'm not leaving." I said, "Well, this is not my house, This is the man's of the church. And I can assure you, the church will not give their permission for you to rent a room from me, because you're not family. If you were family, it's a different story." And he said to me, "I don't care. I stay." I had a week leave coming up, and I thought, okay, stay and look again after the house. I take my dogs with me, because suddenly I didn't trust this guy anymore. And I went for a week to my parents' farm and had a really good time. And I said to him, when I come back, please remove your stuff from the manse and go back to your parents, which obviously he didn't do. So when I came back, he was very adamant of moving into a relationship with me. And I said to him, I'm the minister. You know, this is against the law in South Africa. We can get arrested and be jailed at that stage, early 90s. It was not, the LGBTQ community have no rights. If they suspect you, they would arrest you. So this is something that cannot happen. And it just refused and said, I'm staying. The Saturday afternoon, I had a wedding in the church, and the manse was next door. So I got everything ready, got dressed, and walked down the hallway, and he was standing at the end of the hallway. And when I approached him and said, I have a wedding to go to, he grabbed me and he threw me against the wall, and he started to strangle me. And he said, you're not going anywhere without my permission. Now, I don't know what happened, but eventually I got out of his hands and I slipped through his grip and ran out of the manse, straightened my suit, straightened my tie, put up my smile, and went into the church with him telling me behind me, I will come and pull you down that pulpit if you set foot in that church today, because you're a fraud. I didn't know what to do, so I went on. That was not bravery. It's just because I didn't know what to do. So I went on the pulpit, and I married the couple with my eye on the back door of when is he going to show up and walk into that sanctuary, which he luckily didn't do. So when I came out of the church and I excused myself from the reception because I was really not in a state to go there, I went back to the manse and he was not there, but my safe was opened and my hand revolver were gone. So there I was, and I really didn't know what to do. And I felt I can't phone anybody, I can't tell anybody. Because if this gets out, I'm doomed. I'm doomed already, but if this gets out as general knowledge, I'm doomed. I will end up with my bum in the local jail. So the week went on and he didn't show up again at the manse, and I started to relax. I slept at night with my bedroom door locked because he had keys of my whole house, with my dogs in my bedroom, just to feel some comfort and some safety. But he had my gun. And that Saturday, a friend of mine invited me to a wedding of her family, which was in Kroonstad. It's a town about 70 kilometers away. And I went there the Saturday morning. It was a morning wedding, and really had a good time. She was a university friend of mine, and we had a long history together, and we had a really good time. So I can remember driving back and praying and hoping that, okay, this is the end of this. This is going to go away. I'll be fine. I'm going to do my work, and I'm going to move forward. So when I opened my study door, because the next morning I had to have the worship service, when I opened my study door, I saw it was before the days of mobile phones and that kind of stuff. So I had an answering machine, and the red light was bleeping, which means it's full. Now that answering machine could probably take 50 to 60 messages, and it was full. So I pushed the play button, and message after message after message with the same words what the hell is going on, give me a call. What the hell is going on, give me a call. From professors at the university that I studied, from management of church, anybody you can think of filled my message system on my phone with the same message, give me a call, and I just wanted to disappear. So what do? After calming yourself, or trying to calm yourself down and to figure out what will I do? I'm 26 years old, I have no experience in something like this. I don't know where to go, I don't know who to knock, on whose door to knock for help, because you do not know who's friend and who's enemy. So you call your dad. And I can remember phoning home and my dad answering the phone, which is strange because normally mom will answer the phone. And I just started crying and I couldn't talk, probably for 20 minutes, and he was just listening. Didn't say anything, just said, when you're ready, tell me what's going on. When you're ready, tell me what's going on. So I said to him, described to him in short what's going on, and he said, your mom is in hospital, which I did not know because they didn't want to upset me before the Sunday worship service the next day. But I'm going to pick her up tomorrow afternoon and I'm bringing her through to you. I said, there's no way, because she had, weeks before that, a big cancer operation. There's no way she can come to me. And he said, well, then you come here. Pack your clothes and come here. I said, well, the chair of the presbytery wants to see me tomorrow morning. I need to go there after the worship service, and I'll listen to him and then I'll decide. So the next morning I did the worship service with my suit and tie and my big smile, because everything is okay, you know. I'm the man. I'm the successful minister of Klerksdorp Dutch Reformed Church, and people are packing the church to the rafters. So you play the game. After church, I excused myself and went to the chair's house of the presbytery. He was very short and brief with his message of, you need to get help, you need to get out of here. Remove yourself from the congregation. Basically what he told me. So I went back, packed my stuff, and left for home within a couple of minutes. But before I went, I wrote the resignation letter and handed it to the chair of our board. 8 o'clock that evening, I arrived on the farm with the thought of, you know, if a church and the management of a church show you the door, aren't your parents going to do the same thing? They are farmers. They have no knowledge of these things. I was the golden boy, you know, passed everything at university with distinctions. I was really a great guy. And here that whole house of cards came tumbling down. So I just sat there in the dark with my 2 dogs in the car in front of their house. And then the light went on and my dad came out and he walked around and he opened the door and he said, come in, your mom is also here and we're waiting for you. So I walk into that farmhouse praying just for a safe space, just for a place where I can just relax for the first time in weeks. And when I sat down, typically, Mom, would you like a cup of coffee? And over a cup of coffee, they just kind of embraced me. Not kind of, they embraced me and said, you're our son and we do not care what happens. This is your safe space. The next day was the Monday, and the phone rang and a rapport. Now, rapport in Canadian terms is your biggest Sunday newspaper. that everybody reads. It is South Africa. We are busy through the transitioning period of moving from the apartheid government to Nelson Mandela's new democratic government. Nobody knew what's going on. Everybody bought the report because the report was at that stage even more believable than your Bible for the South African people. So Rapport phoned me and they said, well, what a story. We're going to cover this in the next Sunday's newspaper. And I said, forget about it, I'm not talking to you. I didn't know what to say. You know, what do you tell these people? And as I put the phone down, Huisgenoot, which is like the People's Magazine of South Africa, the same thing. So my dad just said, tomorrow morning, you go very early, I'll give you the truck and some help, and you remove everything from the manse and bring all your stuff back home. He had a butchery at that stage in town, so he couldn't go. My mom was sick, recovering from an operation. She couldn't go, so my brother and his wife jumped in the car. They went with me. And we evacuated a 4-bedroom manse within 2 hours. That's still a record, I think, that stands to this day. Packed everything. Upload on the truck. We arrived there at 5 o'clock in the morning because I didn't want to see anybody. But word spread quite quickly, and around about 6, there were a sea of cars and people trying to prevent me from leaving, although I have already resigned. The chair of the board came up and said, well, the presbytery had an urgent meeting yesterday and they put a complaint in at the General Assembly. So you will be on the red carpet. But, he said, we as a congregation refused to sign the complaint. So if you want to stay, we can fight this. And I said, there's no way. I'm not fighting fit anymore. I'm done. So we moved out back home, and I was waiting for the Sunday. Because normally you buy your report with your huisgenoot, and then you go home and you have entertainment for the whole week. Because that huisgenoot, People's Magazine, is like the gossip of the gossip in South Africa. And just the infamous people reach that magazine. So the Sunday morning early, I went into town. I knew the corner shop cafe opens at 7, so I was there 5 to 7, waiting for the doors to open. Rush in, pick up the report. And I cannot describe to you the feeling when you walk in and you see the stack of papers there with your face on the front page. It's like the world ends right there. So I bought the paper and the huisgenoot, and I drove to my grandma's house and picked her up because she's always with us on Sundays. And she took the paper and she read it. Now, we live on a dirt road, so it's quite a distance from town. And after reading it, she closed the paper and sorry my words, but this was her words. She said, "What a load of bullshit." And she threw the paper down. And that was her comment. And by that, I said, okay, I'm going to survive this. I don't know where God is in all of this, and I've prayed non-stop, especially lying in your own bed with your dogs around you and a guy with a gun somewhere, and you don't know what's going to happen. Where is God in all of this? Why didn't he step in some way, some miracle? Why didn't he just remove the problem? Because that's what we constantly pray for. And that's what we need at that stage, or what I need at that stage. But God was not there. And the Monday morning at 5, my dad opened my bedroom door and he said, "You will be behind the cash register at 6 in the butchery." I said, "You're crazy. Didn't you see the paper yesterday? I was on the front page." And he said, "You will be behind the cash register." And he forced me. At 6 o'clock, I was selling meat on the cash register. And people will walk in and say, wow, what a story in yesterday's paper, because everybody read it, everybody knows it. And they will just laugh or walk out. Some people will just, look at you, pay for their stuff and move out with a thank you. Some not even a thank you. That saved my life, because my dad forced me to face the world. I didn't understand it at that stage, because I thought he was rude, pushing me into that situation, but that saved my life. And I could breathe. So 3 weeks later, I was on the red carpet at the General Assembly's head offices in Pretoria, where the biggest conversation went on about, are you heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual? I said, what has that to do with it? After all of this, and you are concerned where you want to put me, in which box you want to put me? And no support whatsoever from the church saying, we have a structure to support you, phone this person or phone that. Nothing. Just, there's the door. We just want to see your back as you walk out. And again, the question when I drove back to the farm, where's God in all of this? Is this not an institution of God? And the question came a while ago, how did I come onto this road of exploring the teachings of Jesus and the Word of God in a different way? That day when I drove back from Pretoria to that farm, I said to God, wherever He was, I refuse to accept that you're going to abandon me for something that I do not have any control over. If I made a choice to be who I am, then I'll take responsibility, but I did not make this choice. Nobody will make a choice like that and put yourself in a situation like that. Nobody. And I started to search the Old Testament and the New Testament for hope. Because this God didn't show up and told me, you're okay, you're my child, I will look after you. Never. But there was something that's why I read from Samuel when Mephibosheth said, I bow down to you, King David, because I'm a dog. That's how he saw himself, a crippled that the king favored. And that's how I felt. Saying to God, I bow down to you because I'm a dog, a crippled, because of who I am. Do with me what you want. And then you realize, how did I get up every morning during that phase? How did I went up that pulpit and marry a happy couple? How did I do worship services when you're inside on fire and broken down, but your outside portray a picture of happiness and success? How do you do that? And then you realize it's not you that do it, that's doing it. There's something, and that something is how I met Christ. That is who Christ is. And that something is what carries us in moments like that, where you do not know how you get through it, but where you have the energy and the conviction to get up and do your work. And that is my story, with a wish at the end, may all of you meet Christ. Maybe easier than I did, but may all of you meet Christ. Thank you.